You worked for this. You hit the goal. You got the job. You finished the project. And instead of pride, you feel exposed, like someone is about to tap you on the shoulder and say, "Sorry, we made a mistake." Why does success make you feel like a fraud? And why does the feeling get stronger the higher you climb? Visual. Person standing alone in a high-rise office at night. It's not that you think you're incompetent. You know you worked hard, but inside something feels off. When people congratulate you, your chest tightens. You deflect. You say, "I just got lucky." When you sit in the new position, you feel like you're borrowing someone else's life. You double-check emails 3 times. You over-prepare. You rehearse what you're going to say in meetings, not because you don't care, but because you're afraid of being found out. This feeling doesn't just live at work. It shows up in relationships. When someone says they admire you, you feel slightly confused. If they really knew you, would they still think that? This isn't just insecurity, it's an identity conflict. Psychologists call this a form of imposter phenomenon. But underneath that label is something deeper, a mismatch between how the world sees you and how you learn to see yourself. And that mismatch creates tension in the brain. The question is, where did that internal version of you come from? Here's the part most people don't understand. You don't feel fake because you're incapable. You feel fake because your nervous system is trying to protect you. This pattern often forms in environments where love, approval, or safety were tied to performance. Maybe you were the smart one. Maybe you were praised for being mature, responsible, high achieving. Over time, you didn't just do well. You became the one who does well. That identity kept you safe. In behavioral psychology, this is reinforcement. When a behavior leads to reward, praise, attention, stability, your brain wires it in. Do this. Get safety. But there's a hidden cost. You learn that your value is conditional, not based on who you are, but on what you produce. So when you succeed, instead of feeling grounded, you feel pressure. Because now you have something to lose. Let's break down what's happening in the brain. Your brain has something called a self-schema. Think of it as a mental folder labeled "This is me." Inside that folder are beliefs built from memory. I'm the responsible one. I have to work harder than others. I'm not naturally talented. I can't mess up. These beliefs form through repetition and emotional intensity. Neuroscience shows that emotionally charged experiences strengthen neural pathways. The more a belief is reinforced, the more automatic it becomes. Now imagine success enters the picture. A promotion, recognition, public praise. If your self-schema says, "I'm barely holding this together," and reality says, "You're exceptional," the brain detects inconsistency. In cognitive science, this is called cognitive dissonance. Your brain doesn't like contradictions, so it tries to reduce the tension. And the fastest way to reduce it is not to update your identity. It's to downgrade your success. It was luck. They overestimate me. Anyone could have done it. This protects the old identity, because changing your self-schema requires rewriting deep neural pathways, and the brain prefers familiarity over accuracy, even if the familiar story is smaller. Here's a simple mental model. Imagine your identity is a thermostat. If your internal setting is average and the room suddenly heats up to exceptional, your system tries to cool it down, not because heat is bad, but because stability feels safe. So the real issue isn't competence. It's that your identity hasn't caught up to your reality, and that gap feels like fraud. But can identity actually change? Yes, just not the way you think. This isn't about forcing confidence. It's about slowly recalibrating your internal thermostat. Here are 4 principles grounded in psychology. What to do. When you achieve something, describe the process, not your worth. Instead of, "I'm not actually that good," say, "I prepared consistently for 3 months." Why it works. This shifts attribution style. Research in cognitive psychology shows that people who attribute success to controllable behaviors, effort, strategy, build more stable self-concepts. You're teaching your brain. Success is behavior-based, not identity-based. Real-life example, after a successful presentation, write down exactly what you did to prepare, not how you felt about yourself. This builds evidence. Evidence updates schemas. What to do. Intentionally stop over-polishing one low-stakes task. Send the email without rereading it 5 times. Why it works. Perfectionism is a safety behavior. In behavioral psychology, safety behaviors prevent disconfirmation. If you always over-prepare, you never learn what happens if you don't. By removing one layer of over-control, you allow your brain to gather new data. And usually nothing catastrophic happens. Real-life example, speak once in a meeting without rehearsing the sentence in your head first. Notice the outcome. This weakens the "I must be flawless to survive" pathway. What to do. When you feel like a fraud, label the sensation. Tight chest. Racing thoughts. Urge to downplay. Why it works. Neuroscience shows that affect labeling reduces amygdala activity. By naming the feeling, you move activation toward the prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for regulation. You create space between sensation and story. Real-life example, after someone compliments you, instead of deflecting, pause and silently label the discomfort. You don't have to believe the compliment yet, just don't fight it. What to do? Add one sentence to your identity folder. Not, "I'm amazing." Something quieter. "I am someone who learns quickly. I can handle responsibility." Why it works. Schemas update through repeated, believable evidence. If the statement is too extreme, the brain rejects it. But if it's slightly expanded, it integrates. This is called incremental belief revision. Real-life example. After completing a hard task, say out loud, "I handled that." Not perfectly, just handled it. Over time, the thermostat shifts. Here's the mental model to remember. Success doesn't threaten you. Inconsistency does. Your brain is not asking, "Are you capable?" It's asking, "Is this safe?" When success feels fake, it's usually because your identity was built around survival, not expansion. You survived by being careful, by being impressive, by not slipping. Now you're being asked to simply exist at a higher level, without panic, without performance anxiety. And that feels unfamiliar. So the work isn't to become more confident, it's to make success feel normal. Like moving the thermostat 1 degree at a time, you are not a fraud. You are someone whose identity hasn't caught up yet. And that gap can close, not through affirmations, not through pretending, but through small, repeated evidence that you can exist in this space without collapsing. One day, you'll achieve something, and instead of shrinking, you'll feel steady. Not euphoric, not invincible, just steady. And that steadiness will feel unfamiliar at first. But this time, you won't call it fake. You'll call it growth.